All right, so I guess a trigger warning for our audience, chingus. Uh, if you're looking at our faces and we look a little bit rough, for those of you who actually look at our videos, is because we've all been coming off of some pretty serious travel. So Ian, you're fresh back from Korea after your big writing excursion back in Seoul. Kevin, congratulations back from Europe after a successful marriage and honeymoon. I guess I don't have an excuse. I've been here the whole time. My face just always looks this rough. But welcome back, guys. It's been a while since we recorded.
It has been. I miss you guys, Chingus. It's been too long. Well, you have had stuff, Eric. You got a new office and you've been moving in, right?
Yeah, I've been doing some of that stuff, but I don't know. It just feels a little bit less sexy than some of the work that you're doing. And Ian, we talked about this before the recording. We will have a dedicated episode this fall to talk more about what you've been working on because you had a pretty serious sprint on the writing side. But congratulations on completing that.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. I published it on the 7th, but yeah, we'll talk about it later. But
Okay.
I'm really
Just
excited
wanted
to
to,
book on.
no breaking news just yet on that one. We'll have a full three commas episode on that seriously cool book that you put together. But in the spirit of jumping back into things, now that we got a little bit of our first summer travels in, summer travels part one for the VC industry. August hasn't arrived yet, so that's going to be some summer travels part two for the VC industry. We're back to work. So let's actually talk about SK Hynix. Okay, so for those of you who do not know, it's a SK is a large chibble, which is a Korean term for a the conglomerate in Korea that is actually listing on the Nasdaq today. They're already a highly successful, I think, already publicly traded in the Korean exchanges, I believe, Ian, in Korea. But can you share a little bit more about what this company is as someone who's coming from Korea and why we should be excited or paying attention to this as another chip maker entering US on the trading side?
Yeah, I don't know much about SK Hynix, but they're one of the largest chip makers in Korea, and they've been killing it in terms of stock market. So in Korean market, I think Samsung and SK has been killing it. They made a lot of money, and they're essentially leading the market, stock market in Korea. So, but they're coming to the U.S. To Nasdaq, so everybody's really excited about it. But we'll see, like because it's already listed on Korean market. They're converting to Nasdaq through ADR or something. So um, everybody thinks like AI is gonna be there. We need chips for AI. It's like the Nvidia of Korea. So we're excited, and we'll see how that goes.
Uh, Nvidia, in the sense of just like being a super hyped company that everyone is trying to pour dollars into and make a ton of money on. Like so, in terms of their focus, I think they're known for DRAM. And I'm reading NAND, NAND, flash memory chips. So this is a component that I think complements GPUs and CPUs, the things that like Nvidia is doing quite well. Kevin, is this something that you've been tracking as well, which is like some of these chip makers or even like movement with SK Hynix?
Yeah, I mean, one of my friends asked me like months ago if he should buy some of the Korean chip stocks like Samsung and Hynix. And at the time, I was like, oh, I don't know. It's like the Korean stock market's a weird stock market because I don't know. Ian, you probably know more about this than I do, but it's like
Volatility.
volatility. It's a lot of like I don't know, gambling, quote unquote gambling. Because like I think a lot of Koreans just view it as like kind of an online casino. And so I was like, I don't know, hold off. Like, I don't know about the dynamics. Also, the weird thing is like Samsung and I think LG and a few like big trebles basically comprise like a huge proportion, like a majority of the overall market cap of the Korean stock index. So it's just like a few big names that are really driving all of the market. And so I told him, oh, probably not. And then he's looking at me like a few months later, he's like, what do you, why didn't I buy it? It's like up 3x from when we were talking. Like, I could have made a lot of money on this. So now it's like, I feel weird, like opining on it because I feel like I completely led my friend astray. Um, but no, this is huge. I think I actually saw that, in the vein of, I guess, gambling or speculation, there's a ton of like leveraged products now available that a lot of these like big asset managers are now releasing. So it's like 2x, 3x levered, ETFs or products against like SK Hynix and stuff. So I think there was a quote in the news that I read this morning that's like, this is very late stage, like cycle behavior where retail is like getting into a lot of these leveraged products and the volatility is super high.
I mean, Ian, you know a little bit about how crazy Koreans are. And I've been hearing from friends in the field in Korea that, yeah, everyone is trying on the retail side to jump in on this SK Hynix hype. And, some have shown crazy paper gains, at least in terms of what, I guess it's not paper, but I guess like liquid gains in terms of the exposure there. But if this comes crashing down, isn't this one of those things where like Korean society is going to just like freaking like go ape shit, like riots and like violence and stuff like that? I don't know. Is it to that? Tell us a little bit more about like is the hype truly as crazy as I'm hearing it in Korea around this speculation moment?
I think Korean stock market has gone up really fast and a lot, so people are paying attention to SK Hynix for sure. That's the most traded stock in Korea. But we'll see. Like I don't know how long this is gonna last. I'm not buying SK Hynix to be honest. I know they're really important in terms of AI and memory is gonna be the leading the market for AI and all this stuff, but it's still a hardware company. Like they're not gonna be able to make a lot of money. Their PR and all this kind of stuff, they're not going to be able to expand that fast compared to a software company. So I'm not really buying it, but they're kind of hyped because they're part of the AI, scheme in the long run.
Well, good luck to SK Hynix. They're trading under SKHY. Today's the market open. We're recording as of July 10th. This is a Friday, and they're trying to raise $26.5 billion in this US IPO, which I think effectively puts them over $1 trillion of enterprise net worth. So, yay, another $1 trillion company. How exciting. I guess this is the new norm. And actually, speaking of $1 trillion companies, guys, let's check in a little bit about SpaceX. All right. So they had a pretty nice first week or so, but it looks like it's kind of consistently deflating. As of this recording, I'm seeing them at $148 a share. I'm not sure what market cap that puts them on, but I mean, what do you think is happening here? Actually, let's go to our former like banker guy, Kevin here, the married man. Like, was this to be expected? Just like, you go public and there's going to be a period of like deflation on the stock price. People kind of like get the hangover, and then what happens next?
I feel like it's following a very similar cycle to what we see in a lot of IPOs. And I was just remembering, like, you were at Facebook, but I guess maybe not when IPO happened, right? But
Right after.
yeah, but like, I think that was also like a case where, stock, I think popped quite a bit the first few days, and then it just like struggled for, I think, quite a while, right? Below
Yeah, it was
the
wrecked.
price. Yeah, so like I think it's actually a very common pattern that a lot of like new IPOs follow, which is there's a lot of excitement. The bankers line up a lot of demand during the first few days of a stock trading when it first goes public. So there's be a pop, and obviously SpaceX did pop, I think almost to like 220 or more per share, and now it's closer to like $140 per share. And so I think it just follows this pattern of bankers setting it up to do well in the IPO. And then, if there's not enough continued interest and demand, then you'll see a bit of a recalibration down to where the IPO price, or even below the IPO price, which I wouldn't be surprised if that happens here. But I think the long-term, trends for this stock are very good and the company are very good, right? It's arguably the best company in this space. Huge moats. I think it's going to be very hard and a huge market as well. So I think if you've seen some of the investors, like one of the Sequoia investors talked about it, he was like, I'm going to hold this for the rest of my life. Like we're not selling a single share. And so I think the long-term fundamentals are still very much intact for this, but there's going to be a little bit of a recalibration, which is not really surprising to me when you see a lot of these new IPOs happen. It's pretty common.
Have you ever heard of this phenomenon called the smile curve, Kevin? I was talking to a friend in public equities who taught me this recently. He's like, what you got to remember is like, or what you got to think is like, a company like SpaceX, it'll be hyped, it's going to pop just as you said. It'll go through this period of depression on price, just as you said, Kevin. And then if you do believe in the long term value, then it's going to go back up again. So it essentially creates this little smile curve over time, like a happy face. And yeah, that's 100% true. Like in the case of Meta, and I think there's probably countless examples of this. But going into like some conspiracy theories about this, and Ian, I think we talked about this in the past podcast. Rumors, and actually even some early motions from SpaceX saying that we may want to bolt on Tesla someday. So like, I guess I want to get your perspectives from both of you guys. Like, how would that even work? Let's say that they do merge together. So I'm seeing SpaceX at a $2 trillion valuation as of this recording. Or sorry, yeah, SpaceX had a $2 trillion valuation, and then Tesla's at like a $1.3 trillion valuation. Is it just like 2 plus 1.3 equals 3.3? Like, is that like one way to like get the smile to just bolt upright? I guess on the other end of the curve. In the case of SpaceX, I don't know. I mean, and do you think this is actually? Let's actually start with. Do you think this is actually going to happen in soon? This merger again.
I think it's going to happen. I mean, that just makes the story better once you have Tesla on SpaceX side. But then to merge it, you got to get to the similar size of both companies. So I don't know. The conspiracy theory here is that SpaceX will go down, Tesla's going to go up, so they're going to meet in $1.5 trillion valuation market cap, and then they're going to merge. But yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But the problem is SpaceX multiple is so high compared to Tesla right now. I mean, Tesla's even higher. So we'll see how that goes. But then once they merge to one company, I heard that's going to be X.com or something like that. So X Holdings. And then they're going to be a single company. All the Elon's company will be under single X naming and become one of the largest holdings company in the history. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be really fun, but the multiples in SpaceX is really hard.
Okay, I want to dive into this too with Kevin. Like, so Ian made a very interesting comment. Like, in your perspective, and do you need to have similar market cap sizes for these kinds of mergers to make sense? Is that really the precedent? I've never heard that before.
I think that's because like you just want to make sure cover everybody. Like you want to
Hmm.
the Tesla owners and SpaceX owners, so nobody's losing anything. So
Yeah.
There's different merger, like you can do a straight up acquisition, right, where one company buys another, but you can also do what's called a merger of equals, which is more when the size of the companies are a bit more equal, and then you kind of basically you exchange shares. Um,
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's what, Ian's getting at. I mean, the other possibility is like if one becomes a lot bigger than the other, then they just outright acquire, and then you also exchange the shares based on agreed upon ratio of the price of acquisition. So I think, I mean, they're both in a similar size range actually, like 2 trillion versus like 1.5 trillion. I don't think it's actually that big a difference.
Far off. Yeah.
Yeah, between the two of them. But I agree with Ian. I think it makes a lot of sense for Elon to just combine, like just put all of his holding companies. I mean, he should put Neuralink and everything in here too, and just be like, this is the Elon company, like everything I built and created. They're all going to be, there's definitely synergies between all of them that he should be using, and having it all be one company, like a Chebble, would make it a lot, easier to be able to do that, right? So I actually think it makes a lot of sense to just combine them all together, but I don't know, we'll see. It's not as common, I feel like, here in the US versus like in, Korea. Certainly, it's been a very common thing to just create these holding companies, but I don't
Mm.
know if that's been the case here in the US.
Mm. Um, More clownery. if that's a word, to come. There's so much like strange maneuvering that's happening with all these Musk-oriented these companies. If they really do rebrand everything under X, this is it's going to be kind of bizarre because I feel like, at least when I think of the X product itself, it's the weakest of the portfolio. That said, he seems obsessed with that particular letter of the alphabet. But there is a little bit of nature healing in the Musk orbit because we finally got Claude, Fable 5, and Mythos 5 back out to the market. Right. So there was just to bring our Chingu audience back, I guess, up to speed on the events. They had released Fable 5, the more retail facing model, frontier model for the public, and Mythos, which is the more elite, I guess, model for government agencies and a certain number of companies. Earlier, many weeks ago, the US government interceded saying it's too powerful. We're not going to let you do it. Actually, around that time, too, I think like Elon Musk was talking some shit, or maybe slightly before that, about Claude, calling the team like misanthropic. He had like his own little epithets and so forth. And then we, I think, called it correctly, Kevin and Ian, because there was later an announcement shared, which is that Anthropic is going to spend $1 billion a month to get access to SpaceX data centers, right? And we had predicted, so I'm just going to pat ourselves in the back as a good VC would, right? That this might be soft power because if if Elon Musk has the ear of the Trump administration, then by buying some sort of utility, which they already needed from Elon Musk, can they turn him into an ally? And just yesterday, all this Mythos stuff and Fable stuff got released before yesterday, but just yesterday, like July 9th, 2026, Elon Musk even tweeted saying like, yeah, I gotta just like concede that like Anthropic's doing it the best. Like they're the very best model out there. And even though we're competing with them, like I have to just give them hats off. I was like, oh my gosh, like all these things are happening right now. So soft power play working? Kevin, I don't know if you have a different interpretation of just like this backroom maneuvering, I think that's taking place.
I mean, I think he's just being honest that like, Anthropic's crushed it. And it's kind of hard to argue with like results, right? And I think Elon very much knows like if he wants to, if you can't beat him, then join him. And in this case, like if Anthropic's just doing really well, like he wants to join him until maybe one day he can find out a way to beat him. But for now, he's you got to join forces with whoever you think is going to be able to help you propel yourself forward.
Yeah. Ian, we kind of talked a little bit about this, but have you put any testing behind like Fable and these models? I'm kind of curious because you build the most software amongst three of us, I think.
I mean, I use this for daily tasks, like my carousel and kind of stuff, and writing, articles. But I didn't really get any difference in terms of like Fable and Opus 4.8. But then a lot of my developer friends who are making software and stuff, they're really excited about Fable, and they always tell me like it's a big difference. But then the interesting part is that yesterday OpenAI released their GPT 4.6 or something, their latest model, GPT
5.6. Yeah.
5.6.
Yeah.
So and then Anthropic reset the limits for Fable for everybody. So I got to use that more. But then, it's interesting that the frontier models are competing to be the best in coding mostly. I heard, GPT was also better at coding. So we'll see how that goes. But then at the end of the day, I think the frontier model is going to be competing, but there's going to be a kind of model that you can use daily task. I mean, Thomas Tunges said about this yesterday too, but I don't think I need Fable for my daily task. I mean, to make my carousel, talk to them, I think Opus 4.6 is good enough, not even 4.8. So I'm just looking for, this local model that I can put in my laptop and use it without, being charged for it.
I saw this tweet or X post or whatever it's called now just 2 days ago about this notion of AI underclass. So there's a very interesting point that was being made, I thought, which is, right now, Fable 5 access is given to anyone with a paid Claude account until July 12th. So you just referenced, Ian, how they kind of moved the goalposts. This is supposed to originally expire on July 7th, but now it's been pushed out to July 12th. And everyone is like rushing to use this model, especially if you're a developer, because it's like AGI coding at this point. I like the insight, which is like they probably did feel the pressure from GPT 5.6 on OpenAI side, which is like, well, we should maybe give a little bit more love. But the way that my team has been sort of viewing Fable 5 is just like, it's sort of like the drug dealer giving you a couple free hits of heroin, and then like, you start to really like the products because they weren't really ever planning to use anything beyond like Opus 4.8, which is included in our paid plans. But now they're like totally addicted to it. And the underclass comment comes as follows, which is those who can pay eventually to get additional access for Fable 5 or Mythos or whatever might actually have a little bit more of an advantage, especially if you have like a software products development thing, versus those who can't afford it. And already, our My Max plan is like $100 a month. So I can see like most retail people don't want to pay for that. Then it's probably not necessarily for them to, but it's interesting, right? Is it because like there's this narrative, right, Kevin, of just AI at one point was going to just dramatically drop the price of everything. You never need engineers anymore. But then like on the smile curve side of it, like there's this like bizarre kind of path towards like spending crazy amounts of money on tokens. Like I kind of want to get your perspective, Kevin, on like the general view that you have in terms of, let's say, like startup company burn these days. Like is the counterbalance now finally in place of just like, oh, I need fewer people to like, maybe I do need fewer people, but now I'm spending as much or if not more on tokens. Have you noticed any of this in what your portfolio founders are saying?
I mean, I actually have heard a lot. I went to like a conference, I think it was a few weeks ago, that was hosted by Sapphire Ventures, and it was like a more technical conference that was catered towards like dev, kind of engineering teams, and like best practices, sharing best practices of like how you're managing security, data, all these things. And I think one of the big topics and themes was actually how do you do things more efficiently? Because obviously, like you could, as you said, you could pay for as much tokens as you want if you have a huge budget. Just buy as much tokens as you can, just burn them. Which I think it was reported that like Meta, I think Meta was like burning a ton of tokens too, and Zuckerberg was getting a bunch of flack about it because they did layoffs and then they're burning like, I think it was like close to $1 billion of tokens every month or every year, and it was like an insane amount of like compute spend, right? But I actually think one of the key topics that a lot of startups are starting to think about now is how do you actually do this efficiently? Like, can you do a on-premise model? Do you need to be on one of the best models? Like, because at some point you also need to be profitable. You can't be spending, so much money on tokens that even if you don't have a lot of people on your team, if you're spending that much on tokens, like your business model isn't profitable either, right? So I think one of the big topics that I'm starting to see many, many people talk about is actually how do you do things a little bit more efficiently, particularly if you need to become profitable. I mean, Meta and Google, Apple, like they obviously don't care because they're already generating tons of billions of dollars of free cash flow. But if you're a startup that wants to be profitable one day, like you got to figure out a way to be profitable in some time frame, right? 1, 2, 3 years, and you can't be burning tons and tons on tokens if you want to do that.
Our friend Peter Thiel, whom we're going to talk about at the very end of this conversation, once made this amazing quote, which was the majority of investment dollars that make into a startup, and he was referring to San Francisco startups in particular at that time, goes to landlords. Like, right? He was just like, it's too fucking expensive to live here and to work here, and all that money is just going to rent in some capacity. But I mean, Ian, is the new updated Peter Thiel quote, or maybe the Ian Park quote, is like the majority of the money that I'm investing in my portfolio ends up going to tokens. Like, what's your view on that?
Yeah, that's why I think we're gonna get into these local models, and you don't
Yeah,
need to use
I think so.
Fable for everything. So
Yeah.
um, we're gonna get to the local models. We're gonna go to the on-device models. That's gonna do basic task good enough, and have humans involved in those kind of stuff. So, I mean, even if Fable is great, I mean, they're better than other models, but they're still not perfect. So I'm a firm believer that we're gonna have some people, always have some people involved, and have some local and on-device model that is good enough, and people will use that to gain more productivity.
We're gonna get there. I think like even my team is starting to push harder for like these Chinese open source models because they're
Yeah.
like they're doing pretty good. It's like Sonnet quality at this point, and like why not? Because it's essentially free. So people are getting smarter about this stuff, which is maybe the Fable stuff, or Mythos stuff. Where my co-founder Elizabeth had a good view of this. She's like the place where they make a lot of sense will be very specific domains like drug discovery. She's
Mm.
like, yeah, pump insane amounts of money on the tokens to like discover a new cancer drug or folding proteins in some way. Like that seems like a good use of that compute versus like a dating app. We're trying to like match like one person with another. Like that probably is so low level that, Kimmy can do that or something free. Okay, let's move on to some more salacious topics. As you guys told me before we started recording, I do love a little bit of goss. Okay, this one is not as gossy, but but we'll get to that later. Let's talk about Meta for a second here. So, um, 3 days. No, I don't know if it was 3 days ago. I think it was earlier this week on Monday, which I don't know, it was the 6th or something like that of July. A bunch of states, I'm reading now, 29 states are doing a massive lawsuit against Meta around privacy and safety, specifically around teens. They're basically claiming that Meta is targeting minors. They're making the product crazy addictive for minors, and like it's violating what I'm reading is called the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. The remedy that they're seeking is, let me get this number right, $1.4 trillion in penalties if they win this case. The current market cap of Meta as of July 10th, as I'm reading this at 8:44 in the morning, is $1.71 trillion. dollars. Interestingly enough, since Monday when this lawsuit was announced, Meta is trading 13% higher on a market cap basis. So that news seems to be not disturbing investors but like this is unprecedented. I mean, we were talking about like a $200 million, $400 million fine in coupon or something like that in the previous episode as being like game changing, but 1.4 trillion, that effectively shuts down the company, right? If something like that were to happen, maybe not, but like, I mean, what is this? I mean, first of all, like, okay? Two questions. One is like, is it realistic that they're actually going to get a full remedy? I have my opinion. There's probably not. But the second is just like, what is the end goal of this? Is this more about political posturing, or is this more about actual safety concern? I'll start with you, Ian, in terms of just like any reactions to like when you heard about this piece of news.
Yeah, they're always going for it, but they're never going to get it. And that's obviously true. I don't think they're going to be able to get that money back. Um, it's just Meta's been around so long, and social media is affecting. There's a lot of conspiracy theory about social media because they're controlling us and all that kind of stuff. But then, it's never about the kids, but it's always about attacking the big tech companies. So I don't think it's a big deal, to be honest. Like, there's always been people who are trying to get this money back or money from Meta and stuff. But Meta's doing well, pretty well. They're making a lot of money in terms of their ads and all that kind of stuff. They're trying to do better in AI for sure. But it's going to take a little bit more time. But I don't really care about this news because they're never going to get there.
Is this not incredible, Kevin? This threat, or is this something that like shareholders should be thinking pretty seriously about for Meta?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the states will chase them, but Meta's gonna, pay a little bit of money and get it over with. And Meta makes a lot of money on ads. Like everybody's on Instagram, everybody's on Meta's product, and we are the product of Meta. So I don't think it's gonna change anything there.
Yeah. What's your view, Kevin?
I mean, I feel like it just seems, I mean, it's basically the entire market cap for the company, right?
Hmm.
So, like, it doesn't really make any sense. Also don't know, like, in kind of big lawsuits like this, like, has there been precedents where someone's actually, like, I don't know, kind of like paid a massive, has it actually worked? I was thinking,
Maybe
like,
big tobacco was the only
yeah,
precedent I
like,
can think of. Yeah.
yeah, and the thing is though, like I don't know, like are people gonna stop? Are people gonna stop using social media just because they know it's bad for you? I don't know. It's kind of in some ways I get the parallels to tobacco, but in a lot of ways I also don't really I don't think it's like the same thing either. Um, and I guess I was looking this up. Apparently, Big Tobacco did actually settle for like $200 billion, which was probably
Hmm.
like a massive amount of money because this is 20, 25 years ago. So
But
I
they
guess
also
I
admitted
think
at
it's
the
a
time that cigarettes were dangerous. That was the other thing, big thing, and I think it did meaningfully hurt their industry as a result.
well, yeah, because I mean everyone knew that it was, but it's kind of weird, right? Because like tobacco, it's like everyone knows it's bad for you. Like I don't know. I imagine like it's kind of hard to argue against, but like social media. I don't know. One could also argue it's bad for you, but no one really. It's very weird, right? Because it's more like mental health as opposed to like physical
Hmm.
health, right? But I
Yeah.
think all of us would probably agree that social media has a lot of negative mental health effects to a lot of people. Um, it's just hard because I think this is something that it's like people are knowingly doing it. And a lot of people might believe it's not bad for you, actually. And Meta, I mean, frankly, some people may be like, it's actually generally just not bad for you. It's hard to say that it's not gonna kill you.
Yeah, I mean, I read this study from I don't know HBO or something. They're talking about it's not the social media that's hurting the kids. It's actually the family or the parents that are hurting the kids. That's why they're doing a lot more of social media. So the causation is not the social media, but then it's more about the situation that they're in. So if the people, I mean, underage kids are doing a lot of social media, that's just outcome of what they're going through, not social media is causing what they're going through. So,
Okay. I'll make this statement. So I got two young kids,
hmm
and I am a former Meta product manager. So I worked there for a few years, many years ago. I worked on Facebook's core product, and I've also worked on Instagram's core product as a product manager. And what I tell my kids on a very frequent basis is that they're never going to get a social media account as their children. I told them that maybe we can have a discussion about it when they're 16 years old, but even then, I prefer that they wait until they're 18. And just like, I do think it's very dangerous. And I remember some of the decisions even being made back then before the meta was even truly, I guess, in the current state it is, which is really extracting from its users about like how potentially dangerous I think what this platform is in terms of just what it's doing to the world. Like even this is like back in like 2012, where I was just like, this doesn't seem great. I didn't last very long there. Here's my prediction. Okay, I'm gonna call it out for the chingus, and you guys can put market bets against me if you want. So Meta's sitting on $80 billion in cash equivalent short-term investments. That's what I'm reading right now on Gemini. So I think what's going to end up happening is that they will settle for $20 billion. Okay, huge outcome, unprecedentedly huge. In addition, Meta is going to create a foundation, just like the tobacco industry did, about like teen mental health, right? Putting out the ads of just like, whatever, of just like, what is like
Social media can be bad for
health?
you.
Yeah. So, but yeah, what is healthy social media use? What isn't, that kind of thing. And just use that to sort of wash away the sins. So pay a big fine, something that they can absorb. It would hurt, but then they can float some more money and just cover it, I think. And then the teen mental health campaign, they'll hire some sort of credible, like whatever person to represent this. Maybe like a former politician, whatever, and or bipartisan committee even, right? And that's it. And then we're just gonna forget about this, and then we'll keep on going. I don't think that it's gonna hurt social media in the same way that it did the tobacco industry. I think that meaningfully got kids to stop smoking, like once they settled. I don't think like Meta's too smart and social media is too embedded, I think, for that to ever stop. So I'm calling it. And the settlement, okay, for your poly market bets, I'm going to assume that this will take place summer of 2027. That is when I think the settlement is going to be reached. And then, all of the PR is going to be ready for that by that point. So we can come back to the
Eric.
summer.
You've got a very concise view on this. It's interesting. I mean, I agree. Like social media is harmful, for especially for younger minds, right? I think minds that are
Yeah.
more malleable. But I would argue for adults, it's not as, I don't think it's as damaging. I think, yeah. So I don't know. It's like a little bit strange. It's not like, a physical like drug, right? Like tobacco or something where it's like it's bad for everyone. You smoke this, chances are it will decrease your lifespan.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. It's hard to think about, okay, what are the positives, and can someone like weigh the positives against? I mean, for kids, right? It's maybe harder.
This almost feels maybe less like a good comparison to cigarettes, but more a comparison to weed. So, like, I love marijuana. Okay, to my LPs listening, I'm not using it very frequently, but I love weed, and I love it more than alcohol and any other substance too. I didn't really get into marijuana actually until like, yeah, I smoked it in college and I had like stints of this stuff, but like, I didn't really get into it and enjoying it until like COVID. So like I was already like in my, I guess, late 30s at that point, and I was just like, this is great, you know. Again, LPs, I don't use it that frequently. But what I have sort of determined after like studying marijuana a little bit is just like I'm of an age where I think it's fine to use because my brain has fully developed. But if I use weed with like a lot of frequency during my high school years, which a lot of people I know have, I do think that that meaningfully changes your brain chemistry, like during brain development. So I'm like, feels dangerous during that time. So Kevin, to echo your sentiment, like we're kind of like millennial enough, right? Where like we didn't really get hit as punishingly, I feel like, on social media versus like my 18-year-old niece, right? Who just like straight up like was born with like this like platform around her. And I do think that her mental health is more of a struggle, frankly, with these platforms, more so than probably what we dealt with. So yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know if there's a reaction to that. Yeah.
No, it's weird. Like I don't know how to reconcile, right? Because
Mm.
I would argue like social media is bad for some people. It's not as bad for others. And I think the generation age like that we came into it makes a difference. Like
Mm.
I remember when we were using it in the very early days, it was just to like chat with our friends, right? Like AOL,
It was fun.
Messenger.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, oh, Facebook, we post like, oh, we graduated from high school or middle school, here's our photos. Like, it was a very like easy way to just share photos and memories with like friends. But obviously now it's evolved into a very, very, very different product and very different content from that, right? So, it's become very, it could be you could be a content creator. Like there was no such thing as that in the early days of social media. It was just I want to share stuff with my friends, right? And so I just think it's has such differing effects to different people that I wonder how you kind of like calculate or like quantify the damage for certain people, and positive. I think there is still some positive effects for say that grandmother who wants to stay in touch with their kids and see their photos and family photos and stuff. Like it still has positive effects for some people too. So I just don't know how you like really reconcile all the different positive and negative effects for people.
Mm. Well, let's stay on top of this story. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what this inevitable settlement is going to look like. And, guys, as we wrap up this podcast, I want to get into the gossip that we had alluded to. This is actually not that like crazy, but there's like a big story in the last 2 weeks. Again, it's been a while since we recorded, or maybe like the last 4 weeks, around like this whole society that Peter Thiel is running, right? Called Dialogue. It's like a annual meeting or something, or some sort of ultra secret societies. I'm reading from Forbes right now. And the part that was kind of interesting was two things. One was the people who are participants. So Thiel is known to be more libertarian right leaning, I'd say. But this is a fairly bipartisan group of people, like a lot of Democratic senators, actors like Joseph Gordon-Levitt, like random people, but also a lot of billionaires and all that kind of stuff. But the topics were also the second part that were really interesting. So I'm reading things like money does buy happiness, bring back nuclear, navigating World War III, how's your sex life, right? And so the funny thing about this whole story is that some sort of Swiss hacking group uh, discovered the registration list, which was like not privately shielded in any way on some sort of janky website, and all these people were revealed. And there's like a lot of backlash actually. I don't know if you guys saw, of like certain participants, especially those who seem pretty far departed and removed from Peter Thiel's thinking, of being a part of this. But I saw the list and I thought it was pretty hilarious. And then I kind of thought to myself of like, if I were invited, I totally would want to go. Like I am not subscribing to a lot of Peter Thiel's personal beliefs by any means. I want to put that on the record. But just like I appreciate actually that like this seems to be a true meeting of rivaling minds in like a sort of good faith way. So I don't know if you guys have been amused or like kind of surprised by the reaction when like this list of people and surrounding Peter Thiel was released. Yeah. If anyone wants to take
I
that,
was
Ian
surprised,
or Kevin.
but it was entertaining to see that like there really are these like secret societies that are like operating like I don't know, like Illuminati kind of style, where like they're meeting up and talking about random interesting topics, right? So I was just kind of surprised to see that obviously someone leaked it, hacked it, leaked this information, which is kind of entertaining to see. um so I don't know, I thought it was just funny. I think that it's kind of like a more private version of like Sun Valley, right? I think Sun Valley was this week or last week, so it's a little bit more kind of, there's photographers and the topics are all public, so you can like kind of follow along. But this is a bit more like, oh, let's talk about the topics that we can't talk about in public, kind of.
It actually seems
Yeah,
kind of
there's.
healthy, honestly, right, Ian? I mean, I don't know.
I think that's totally fine. I mean, there's always going to be this secret society. I mean, so everybody knew there's going to be something, but it's just funny that it leaked and people know about them. Um, but that's how we run. Like VCs run their own secret society, their network, and to get access to startups. So I'm not surprised that Peter's running another one there.
Yeah.
Well, they really do like to gossip just like we do, right? I mean, like talking about like billionaire sex lives. Like I want to be in that like session. I want to hear like what's going on there, right? How are you going to navigate World War III? Like what am I going to do, right? Sounds fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
How does your bunker look? What kind of bunker should I get?
Exactly. Like, what do you have in your bunkers? Like, it's a different topic that you can't talk about with regular people.
Exactly. Well, guys, we got to get our day started. I know we're already running over a little bit as of this recording time. So I want to just thank a different kind of secret society, which is the Society of Chingus, right? Starting with my two brothers right here. It's great to be back recording with you. And for the listeners out there, I hope you're enjoying having us back on schedule again before travel sessions travel part 2 later this summer maybe might happen. But actually, I almost forgot. One of us has to sign off. It's been so long since the last time we've done this. Does anyone remember whose turn it is?
No,
I
I don't think so.
Okay,
Hey,
I'll,
why
I'll
don't you
do
do
it.
it?
I will do it. Okay. So it's me, and then we'll make Ian do it next time. Okay. So Chingus, everyone listening out there, thank you so much for this. Is great to be back, as I mentioned. Just want to be super clear that anything that we discuss here is not investment advice at all. Don't make those poly market bets that I was suggesting from earlier in this call. But we're all here to learn and get educated together. So until next time, thank you guys so much. Good to see you, Chingus.
Good to see you.
Next
Let's
week.
do it.